Hi, everybody. Jim Ostrowski with the Liberty Moving Podcast. So, this won't be that long. I'm going to talk about Musk's dumb idea. So, Musk is starting a political party. I'm really just going to make three main points, and we'll see what happens. So, point one, third parties don't work in the U.S. Point two, we don't need a third party. We need a new ideology. And point three is we need a new strategy. It's not about a new party. So let's talk about political parties. It's a two-party system. It's rigged. I won't go into all the details, but let's just start. Let's. You never know what you're going to see on the bike path. Holy shit. So, impeach the felon, it says. That wasn't what I was reacting to. So, let's go back to Lincoln. Was Lincoln the third party? No, he wasn't. The Whig Party collapsed. And the Republican Party basically replaced the Whig Party. The Republican Party had the same platform as the Whig Party, plus opposition to slavery in the territories. Moderate opposition to slavery. This notion that Abe was the great liberator was really bullshit. He was not an abolitionist. So next one, let's talk about Teddy Roosevelt. He's on Mount Rushmore, one of the most accomplished, famous Americans, universal name recognition, and he could not win in 1912. Ross Perot, universal name recognition, billionaire, well-liked, wound up a little too tight, dropped out, dropped back in, got 19%. He couldn't win. So, Libertarian Party's been at it. Libertarian Party has the ideology of the founding of America, and they've been at 1% for 40 years. Granted, the people running the party have been mostly incompetent. How you doing? Mostly incompetent amateurs. But in any event, so third parties don't work. He doesn't have a prayer. To the extent that people are worried about him splitting the vote, I don't think there's much to worry about. As far as split. Without him splitting the vote, what are we accomplishing? The government's getting bigger all the time. As Tom Woods said, whoever you vote for, you get John McCain. You get debt, war, spending, debt, war, spending, debt, war, spending. The details vary, but the basic theme, the major themes are the same. So I'm going to talk. Sorry, I got to cross Kenmore Avenue. Hang on for a second. The payoff's going to be huge. I never press the button because it's stupid. The reason I don't press the button is I don't trust the people to stop. So why would I rely on a government safety system that's probably going to get me killed? So I relied on my own wits, and here I am. I'm still talking, right? I'm not dead. So we don't need a new party. We've got plenty of parties. The system's rigged. Voting is rigged. Politics is rigged. Government is rigged. We don't need a new party. We need a new ideology. And Musk, from what I can tell, has no ideology. He seems to be kind of a soft libertarian, but he doesn't seem to have, he's like a typical business pragmatist. Ideas are kind of tools to get over at the moment, and I don't think he's like an ideological libertarian. If he was, he'd be joining up with the libertarians or calling me, but he hasn't called. The phone is not ringing. So I did a post the other day, I talked about it a little bit. So what matters in politics? So what matters in politics is brute force. The government has has guns and bombs and troops and everything. handcuffs, jails, prisons, and so on. So brute force matters. But I think ideology probably is more important, and then there's self-interest, and the other element I mentioned was basically propaganda. But propaganda is really inseparable from ideology, because once you get away from the true ideology, which is libertarianism, which is based on fact and logic and history, the other ideologies are basically dishonest sets of bullshitty ideas, and so they are kind of inherent. Like progressivism is inherently it's an ideology of propaganda because it's all false. And so all the arguments in favor of progressivism are propaganda. So those are the main elements. So, but I think ideology is actually the most important factor, and the reason is that ideology masks self-interest, and ideology justifies the use of force. So it really comes down to ideology. If the force the government's using is not perceived by the public to be in furtherance of some ideology, then the public is more likely to resist that force. Because basically, the public doesn't really want to think that the government is just a criminal organization. So what separates the government from a criminal organization is the ideology. So ultimately, at the end of the day, ideology is the most important factor. So what's the ideology of the United States? Well, we didn't know what it was until a guy from Buffalo wrote a book about it, which has been read by 12,000 people. If it had been read by 120,000 people, I think we'd have a different country today. But I'm a good writer. I'm not the greatest marketer in the world. Anybody wants to volunteer to be my marketing person, feel free. Can't afford to pay it. So the ideology of the United States since 1913, when Wilson took office, is small p progressivism. And both parties share the same ideology. The Democrats push it really hard. The Republicans kind of pretend to push back. But the Republicans haven't repealed a single progressive program since 1913. So sorry about that. So what the country really needs is an ideology that determines what the government should be doing at any given time. It doesn't matter if there's a new party that's progressive. You're still going to get progressive big government, which is what. And what's point three? So point three is, we not only need a new ideology, we need a new strategy, because you can have an ideology, but if you have no way to put the ideology into effect against the rigged political system that we have, then what's the point? So now what is this strategy that we should use? Well, I've been talking about it for 15 years, and if you're familiar with my work, you'll know that the strategy is direct citizen action. So if politics is rigged to the point where the last election that led to an increase in the overall liberty of American citizens across the board was 1800, I think this whole voting strategy, vote harder, run for office. You hear this stuff on the Bannon show, and I love watching Bannon because he's a smart guy. He's cutting edge in many ways, but run for the school board and, be a precinct committeeman. None of this stuff works. I'm not going to prove that here. I've proven it in my books and many, many podcasts. I've drilled down in granular detail, just to give you an object lesson. So why doesn't running for committeeman work? So about 20 years ago, when the Tea Party was active in Buffalo, a guy wanted to take over the Republican Party committeeman and run the party. And they said, Joe, not his real name, He's long passed from the scene. I said, Joe, how many committeemen would you have to elect to take control of the Republican committee in Erie County, which is about the 5th largest? It's not a small county. It's not a huge county, but it's about the 5th largest county in New York State. I've lost track of exactly where it is. How many committeemen would you have to elect? And he just looked at me cross-eyed. Well, this is the kind of thing you need to know. Like, you know, they say Hitler knew how many artillery shells were on the Western Front. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but the point is made. If you're running a movement, you need to know those details. So why is it that the machine can get hundreds of people to run for committeemen? Oh, so this is worth telling. I won't go into the whole thing. So the guy, you know, he blew off my assistance as a professional political consultant, professional grade political consultant, and he just did it on his own. So he had some people running, and so I ran into the Republican Board of Elections commissioner a few months later, after he tried to run these precinct committeemen, and I said, Ralph, how many guys did they actually run? I don't know. This is a long time ago. He said, a couple dozen. And he said, well, how many won? How many actually got elected in the primary running against the machine candidate? He said, none. So it's like, there's a reason why the machine wins, which is that most people don't really want to get involved in politics, but the machine gives you a sort of a financial incentive. You're going to get some material graft from the machine if you run for committeeman. And if you're, some reform committeeman, you'll go on the energy of idealism for about a year and a half until your wife starts nagging you about missing, why are you going to all these meetings? You're neglecting the family and all this stuff. And, all the activists have been through this. And then eventually people get burned out and nothing happens. And another thing that happens, it's really interesting. I could go on for hours on this. I won't. Another thing that happens is a lot of these reform committeemen, they actually end up becoming part of the machine. And why is that? It's like Stockholm syndrome. Everybody wants to be liked by the people who surround them. But I have a simple formula, which is all reformers become hacks. So, look, none of this stuff works. Politics is rigged. Reform movements are rigged. Running for the school board doesn't work. I could give you example after example, object lesson after I could give you the theoretical. This is not the purpose of this particular podcast. So, direct action does work, except for one thing: people don't want to do it, and this is like the conundrum of direct action. If people did it, it would work. It overcomes all of the ways that politics is rigged. But why can't we convince people to do it? I'm still trying to crack that code. It's a mystery to me. I'm going to keep trying. But I think it's because we're just habituated to running an election. And the election is on November 3rd, and there's a score, and it's over with. And the problem with direct action is it's not a particular date. You don't know if there's not a final score. It's like this ongoing thing. You just have to trust your mind that intellectually you know that, for example, if I walk 10,000 steps a day, I'm going to contribute to a movement that's going to reduce morbidity and mortality in the United States. It's going to reduce healthcare costs. It's going to give me more energy, more vitality. I'm going to live longer. I'm going to spend less on healthcare. And that's going to make me, that's going to increase my liberty. It's also going to, in a small way, increase the liberty of the American people. So basically, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I could talk forever, but, I don't want to gild the lily here. So point one, third parties in America will always fail because the system is rigged. And although Musk has some money to throw around, he might change that calculus by a couple of percentage points, but he's not going to succeed. Point two, we don't need a new political party. We need a new ideology to replace progressivism. And point three is, in order to effectuate that ideology, we need to use direct citizen action and stop being conned by the scam of voting. Voting is a scam. Elections are a scam. Politics is a scam. Every form of politics, from voting to supporting candidates to lawsuits. I'm a freaking lawyer for 41 years. My father was a judge for 30. There's nobody who knows more about the American court system and how it actually functions than I do. There's just nobody. Some freaking law professor who's never been in a courtroom. Lawsuits are rigged, lobbying's rigged, voting's rigged, candidates are rigged. The only thing that's going to work, and I'm not going to try to convince you of this on this podcast because I don't want to bore you to death, is direct citizen action. You can look at my books. You can look at my website, libertymovement.org. You can look at the various podcasts. So that's really all I wanted to say. Just kind of a quick dismissal of Elon Musk's stupid idea of starting a third party. And that's about all I have to say. So from the North Buffalo Bike Path, have a great day, everybody.